like Kevin Carr is huge tonight.
Zachary Vitt with 17 goals on the season. He's been the picture of consistency offensively for Geneseo, but last Saturday against Cortland, they got some contributions from some players who have been playing outstanding this season. Brickler hadn't scored in a few weeks. He was able to find the back of the net on a great individual effort to get Geneseo back in the game when they were really struggling as a team. Sometimes a great individual effort can spark the team and get them going. Brickler did just that. And then Jack Zaglarski having an outstanding season, one of the reasons why Zachary Vitt has 17 goals on the year. Not finding the back of the net as much. Over the last few weeks, he's been much more proficient at that, and he scored the big goal on the rebound to give Geneseo a 3-2 lead that would hold up as the winner. Geneseo needs more contributions like that from players who haven't been finding the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely huge. We talked about the things that Geneseo had to do in that game. It was crash the net. It was get people in front of the goaltender, and they weren't doing that for most of the game. And then you said, we kind of said, someone has to step up and do something, and it was Tyler Brickler who made that great play behind the net to steal the puck and do a little dipsy-doodle in front of the net to put it in the back of the net. That's exactly what they're going to keep needing.
Nick Horgan's going to get the start once again tonight, and it's kind of funny. He was in a mostly backup role for most of the season. So you look at his numbers and you think, well, they're inflated. It's a small sample size. Over the last 2 weeks, he's won some games, and now you look at that sample size at 9-1, and that's sizable enough for you to say a 1.99 goals against and 932 save percentage. Those are damn good numbers.
That's absolutely huge numbers. We talk about guys like Cadeau and guys like Carr. Well, right now Nick Horgan's name is up there, if not higher than a guy like Carr. I think Cadeau's numbers are absolutely unbelievable. I think his save percentage is around 96. But even still, Nick Horgan, like you said, 93% goals against, below 2. I mean, those are numbers that you can't mess with. And like you said, a guy who was the backup for most of the year, he gets his chance, and you can't take him out of the game. And you gotta keep riding his hot streak.
As we'll look through the lines tonight for Geneseo, it will be Jack Zaglarski between David Ripple and Zachary Vitt on the top line, Tyler Brickler with Stevie Collins and Ryan Stanimir, Jonathan Soucis with Justin Sharfie and Connor Antoine, Carson Schell with Zach Martin, also returning to the lineup after an injury last weekend in Cortland. His foot has healed. He'll also be with Brent Bisbee. On defense, Derek Stahl with Jack Caradonna, Matthew Hutchinson with Nate Brown, and Matt Solomon with Cam Hampson. Between the pipes, as mentioned, Nick Horgan. The lines for the Buffalo State Bengals will be Mike Zanella with Dan Turgeon and Taylor Price, Adam Rossi with Brett Hope and Ryan Salkell, Taylor McGraw with Shane Avery and Kyle Whipple, Jake Rosen with Nick Burst and Mac Falzen. On defense, Nick Shiro with Ben Kramer, Charles Lapierre with Jason Cleaver, Sharon Rivnik and Clayton Lewis. Between the pipes, as mentioned, Kevin Carr, always a key asterisk on the game plan for Geneseo when they're playing Buffalo State, but that's not the only name you have to look out for. Mostly you can circle it on the top line here for Buffalo State in terms of who you have to look out for offensively, and most importantly, Dan Turgeon.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Dan Turgeon, 10 goals in the year, 6 on the power play, but you look at Taylor Price's 4 goals, 13 assists, mainly feeding Dan Turgeon, and Zanella with good numbers as well. It's that top line you really got to keep an eye on. Not an incredible offense spread throughout the lineup, but really polarized on that top line.
And really, you got to envision for Mike Zanella, Dan Turgeon, Taylor Price, this is a top line that can score goals, but they're not pretty when they do it. They're not fleet of foot. They don't dart around like some of the other top lines, particularly like you look at like Potsdam with Tommy Teleska and Billy Piscali. This is 3 power forwards stacked shoulder to shoulder. You look at Mike Zanella, Dan Turgeon, Taylor Price. It's almost like having 3 Blake Wheelers.
Yeah, well, it really is maybe the most Division III team in the SUNYAC. It really is 4 lines of grinded out hockey, and then you have a heck of a goaltender behind you. So it really is just a mucky, grinded out, go in front of the net, get messy in the corners kind of team. And that's exactly how the top line is, and they produce.
Now, if you want to look for someone who would be a traditional top line forward, you're not going to find him on any of your top 4 lines. Where you're going to find it is on the back end with Ben Kramer. Ben Kramer, a little bit of a smaller build, but he has the speed, he has the puck-carrying ability, and he's the guy that they look to incorporate off the power play in terms of diving into the high slot, going back door on the cross-ice pass, and he's someone they look for offense with a spark.
Yeah, he's a really good offensive defenseman. 9 points, leads the Bengals defensively, and actually I think he's 4th on the team, so he's really the type of guy, like you said, he can run the power play, he can make those cross-corner passes on the power play, and he's a guy that Geneseo has to keep an eye on, especially in offensive situations.
As the Ice Knights, we've explained in the past week, still have first place in the SUNYAC in their own hands. Were they to win out the remainder of their schedule, and Plattsburgh was to do the same, they would hold the tiebreaker for regular season wins, thanks mostly in part to their win over Plattsburgh here in Geneseo earlier in the semester. So for the Ice Knights, it's win 2 games and guarantee home ice advantage throughout the playoffs, or hope for any combination of a Geneseo win and a Plattsburgh loss, which would also do the trick, which is where, again, tomorrow night, that Plattsburgh-Oswego game could be extremely important in Plattsburgh. And you look at Oswego, a team lost to Geneseo last week, as we covered here on this station, also lost to Brockport. Not a team particularly riding high, and now riding into Plattsburgh, where it's hard to win for just about anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, you can't say enough about how Geneseo played, how they really battled through last weekend. The game in Oswego, they had a great start. The second period, they were outshot 18-1. Nick Horgan, again, had a huge game, but they were able to battle through that game. And then the same thing with Cortland, but Oswego had 2 huge losses at home. They haven't done that, haven't lost 2 games at home in a row in one weekend since, I believe, 2003 it was we looked up. So this is a huge weekend for everyone.
And not to mention, it's important because for Geneseo, tough battle in Oswego. They want home ice because they don't want to go back to Plattsburgh. No one wants to go through Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, an important weekend against Buffalo State, because last weekend we saw Oswego, this weekend we're seeing the Bengals, and very, very likely round 1, which would, let's say, presumably if Geneseo wins out, would be here at the, well, regardless, round 1 would be here at the IRA. It's, in all likelihood, it's going to be the Bengals or the Lakers.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, obviously, at this point, Oswego and Buff State it's pretty much set. Oswego and Buff State are going to be 3 and 4, or in some combination. And Geneseo and Plattsburgh obviously 1 and 2. So at this point, it's not it's some jockeying for position, but it's also you don't want to lose 3 games in a row or 3 out of 4 going into the playoffs, especially against a team that you're going to see again probably the second round.
For Buff State, it will be Mike Zanella, Dan Turgeon, and Taylor Price starting the game with Nick Shiro and Ben Kramer. The Ice Knights will be starting with their top line of Ripple, Siglarski, and Vitt. And defensively, Caradonna and Derek Stahl. It's important for Jack Caradonna, as we talked about last week, not to beat the drum, but he's struggled over the last 2 weeks. It's not struggling like he's lost a step. It's struggling like he's not comfortable. And going into the playoffs, they need him in full confidence.
It's a little bit, exactly. It's a confidence thing. And even talking to Matt Lee, he was saying that, you know, when Jack Caradonna's on, he's upbeat. He's a good guy to have on the bench. And when he's not, he kind of loses his confidence. He quiets down.
And that's not Jack Caradonna.
Exactly. I think it really is a confidence thing. When he can get going, it's going to be huge for this team.
Well, we are ready for the anthems, and we invite you to rise to your feet.